the beginning of the movie, we are introduced to Rick, and right away, the film makes it crystal clear that this guy is at the absolute bottom of the social food chain. He barely catches the school bus, huffing and puffing as he jumps on board. But instead of relief, he's met with something almost cruel. Every single student on that bus refuses to make room for him. They shift away. They look the other way. Nobody wants him near them. Why? Because nobody really likes Rick. Now, most people in that situation would just stand there awkwardly. But Rick spots one saving grace. His only friend in the entire school, a guy named Trey. He slides in next to him, grateful to at least have somewhere to sit. But then Rick notices her. A few rows ahead, sitting like she belongs in a completely different, better world, is Jill. And the moment Rick sees her, it's over for him. He's completely, hopelessly gone. He keeps turning around, stealing glances. Trey notices, and being the brutally honest friend that he is, he pulls Rick back to reality with one harsh truth. Jill would never go for someone like him. But does Rick listen? Of course not. The whole class is heading to an animal research center on a field trip, and Rick has already decided this is his moment. This is where he finally impresses Jill. His plan? Photography. He walks up to Jill, puffs up his chest, and casually announces that he's a skilled photographer who could take some stunning pictures of her. Smooth, right? Except for one tiny problem. Photography is strictly forbidden inside the research center. Rick misses them all. He secretly pulls out his camera anyway and snaps a shot of a bird perched near Jill. The bird catches fire, but the burning bird is now flapping around in a full panic, and it lands directly on Lawrence. Now, Lawrence isn't just some random guy. Lawrence is Jill's boyfriend. Lawrence charges at him like a bull. But before fists can fly, someone unexpected steps in. A well-dressed older man named Lou walks onto the scene. It turns out Uncle Lou is one of the major investors of this research center. He recognizes Rick and asks about his parents. And this is the first moment where the film slows down and gives us something emotional. Rick quietly explains that his parents died years ago. He lives with his uncle and aunt now. Lou's expression softens. He pats Rick on the shoulder and walks away. But the second Lou disappears, Lawrence is right back at it. He shoves Rick so hard that Rick stumbles, straight into a pile of animal waste. And as if that wasn't humiliating enough, Rick spots what he thinks is a bottle of water nearby. He grabs it and pours it all over himself to clean up. Big mistake. That liquid, it's a chemical used in animal research, specifically designed to attract male animals. Within seconds, creatures are crawling out from every corner of the facility, climbing all over Rick. The crowd loses it. Everyone is pointing and laughing, even Jill. And right there, in the middle of this absolute chaos, a dragonfly lands on Rick and bites him. He barely notices. He's got animals hanging off his arms. But that tiny bite, that little moment nobody paid attention to, that changes everything. We are then shown Rick arriving home later that day, completely drained. He looks like a man who aged 10 years in one afternoon. His uncle asks him to feed the fish. Rick walks over to the tank and throws up into it. Yeah, that bad. He drags himself to his room and collapses. Meanwhile, the movie cuts to a completely different scene, and this is where things start getting dark. We are introduced to Uncle Lou, not as the friendly investor we saw earlier, but in a very different light. He's in a private laboratory surrounded by scientists. Here, we learn the truth about Lou. He's dying. He has a deadly disease that has been eating away at him for years. He and his team have spent years building a machine, a device that they hoped would be powerful enough to cure him. Took everything they had. And on this night, Lou decides he's done waiting. He orders the doctor to activate the machine immediately. The doctor resists, warning him it's still incomplete, still dangerous. Lou doesn't care. Then it explodes. The room fills with laughter. The scientists think it's a joke. Lou, cold, calm, and completely composed, reaches out and grabs that scientist. And in one chilling moment, the man crumples to the floor, completely lifeless. Lou straightens up, looks at his hands, and smiles. Because he just discovered something the machine wasn't supposed to teach him. As long as he can absorb the life energy of other human beings, he doesn't have to die. Back in the world of the living, Rick wakes up the next day and heads to school for an annual function. The guest speaker is none other than Stephen Hawking, who delivers an emotional speech about resilience, about facing impossible odds and refusing to quit. But Rick's eyes keep wandering to Jill. He tries to get her attention. Naturally, it backfires. His hand somehow gets lodged inside a sink. When he finally yanks it free, slamming straight into Lawrence. Lawrence is done. He launches after Rick, who bolts out of there as fast as his legs will carry him. In his panic, Rick crashes into another student and his hands stick to the guy's clothing. The whole school is staring. Rick stumbles outside, heart pounding, mind racing. Something is very wrong with him. He reaches out his hand and presses it against the surface. Then he starts climbing, and he scales it with ease. He reaches the top, looks out at the world below him. He spots a woman walking her dog on the street below. He also spots a truck, speeding, brakes not responding, heading directly for her. Without a second thought, Rick leaps down and throws himself in front of her. The truck hits him full force. He doesn't move. He doesn't fly. He just stands there. The truck crumples around him like tin foil. He looks down at himself. Not a scratch. Not even a bruise. Everyone around them is frozen in shock. But Rick turns to check on the woman, and his face goes pale. In pushing her out of the truck's path, he accidentally sent her directly into a cutting machine nearby. She's gone. Rick stands there, staring. He has power. Real, extraordinary power. And his very first attempt at using it to help someone killed her. At home, Rick comes clean to his uncle and aunt. He tells them everything, the dragonfly bite, the strange things happening to his body, the climbing, the truck. His uncle, being the kind of man who believes in testing rather than trusting, picks up a knife and drives it straight into Rick's chest. The blade bends like paper. His uncle steps back, eyes wide. It's real. Then the movie gives us a flashback, a painful one. We see a younger Rick with his parents, walking home from a show. They get cornered by robbers. Rick, trying to protect his family, loses control. In the chaos, he kills his own parents. By accident. With his own hands. Before his father passed, he pressed a ring into Rick's hand. Rick has carried that ring ever since, and the weight of what it represents. In his grief, Rick flings the ring away. Comes back to him. Every single time. Then Jill shows up at his door. And in a genuinely heartbreaking moment, she tells him that things with Lawrence aren't working, and that she actually wants to date him. Rick can barely process what he's hearing, because at that exact moment, Lawrence rolls up in a gleaming new sports car. Jill looks at Rick, looks at the car, and tells him she wishes he had something like that so they could go on a long drive together. Then she leaves. With Lawrence, Rick stands there, looking at his beat-up old bicycle. Some things even superpowers can't fix. But Rick doesn't give up. He goes home and discovers a professor online. Someone who runs a secret school exclusively for people with abilities like his. Rick makes a decision. He's going to find this man. First though, he needs money. So he heads to the bank with his uncle and aunt to apply for a loan to buy a car. And naturally, the bank gets robbed while he's inside. In the chaos of trying to escape, Rick somehow ends up accidentally helping the robbers get through the doors they couldn't open themselves. They escape, and Rick watches them go, horrified at himself. But then his uncle doubles over in pain. His health is deteriorating fast. An ambulance arrives and takes him away. Rick watches the ambulance disappear and feels the ground shifting beneath him. Meanwhile, Uncle Lou is back in his office, already feeling the energy from his previous victim fading. His assistant walks in. Seconds later, she's dead. He hides her body in a cabinet and straightens his tie. This man is building a body count. Rick visits his uncle in the hospital, then goes straight to find Professor Xavier. Yes, that's actually the professor's name. Xavier welcomes him and takes him to the school, which turns out to be unlike anything Rick imagined. It's filled with kids and young adults, each with their own unique, bizarre abilities. Some can fly. Some can disappear. It's chaotic and wonderful all at once. Xavier introduces Rick to his wife, who is holding what appears to be a doll. Yep, that's their son. Mrs. Xavier makes it clear, if Rick is going to be part of the school, he needs a costume. No exceptions. So Rick gets to work. He puts the suit on, climbs to a rooftop, and stands there against the sky, no longer just the kid nobody wanted to sit next to on a school bus. He's the Dragonfly. Another costumed hero shows up on that same rooftop, tells Rick it's his spot. Rick tells him they can share it. Even as a superhero, Rick is. The next morning, Rick walks into a job interview and decides, brilliantly, to show the HR manager photos of himself in his superhero costume to prove he's a talented photographer. He doesn't get the job. But before he can process that rejection, news breaks. A university is under attack. Rick's university. He's gone before anyone can blink. At the campus, he finds chaos. And standing in the middle of it, dressed in a gleaming silver suit, is Uncle Lou. Rick steps in. The two face off for the first time, and it's intense. They exchange blows, neither one backing down easily. But eventually, Rick's endurance starts to tip the scales, and Lou, calculating as ever, decides to retreat. This isn't over. He's just regrouping. Jill witnesses the whole thing. She's blown away by the Dragonfly superhero. She has no idea she's looking at Rick. That night, Jill is walking home from a theater when Rick, out of costume, nervous as ever, falls into step beside her. He's trying to talk to her. She actually makes it easy. She tells him she wanted him to ask her out. She's been waiting for him. Rick opens his mouth, and nothing comes out. Jill shakes her head and walks away, frustrated. A A group of thugs begins following her down the street. Rick spots it, disappears around a corner, and reemerges as the Dragonfly. He handles the situation, sends the thugs running, and saves her. Jill is completely smitten with the Dragonfly superhero. She still has absolutely no idea. Rick's aunt invites Jill over for dinner. Sweet, domestic, normal. And then Lawrence arrives, with Uncle Lou. Lou takes the opportunity to slip away to Rick's room, claiming to just be browsing. But he's hunting. He suspects Rick is the Dragonfly, and he's looking for evidence. Rick manages to stay hidden, barely, and emerges downstairs in normal clothes just in time. But Lou isn't fooled. He spots an injury on Rick's hand. He recognizes it immediately. It's from a blade he threw during their fight. That wound is proof. Lou now knows. He knows exactly who Rick is. Later, Lawrence leaves, and Rick finally has a real moment alone with Jill. They're talking, laughing. Something real is forming between them. Then Lou walks back in. Not as the charming investor, as the monster. Rick tries to fight him. He throws everything he has at Lou. But Lou has been feeding on other people's energy for weeks, and he's strong. Rick goes down. And while Rick is unconscious, Lou kills his aunt. Rick wakes up and has to deliver the worst news of his life to his uncle in the hospital. The doctor begs him not to cause any emotional shock. His uncle's heart can't take it. But another doctor, completely unaware, lets the truth slip. Rick watches his uncle break. The funeral is quiet and devastating. Rick's uncle is so wrecked by grief that he tries to climb into the coffin to lie next to his wife. Days pass. Rick barely leaves his room. He's grieving, guilty, broken. He blames himself for all of it. But then his uncle comes to him, frail, heartbroken, barely holding himself together, and does something remarkable. He reaches into his pocket and pulls out the ring from Rick's father. He places it in Rick's hand and tells him something he needs to hear. You are a superhero, and superheroes don't get to give up. A villain is out there. 47,000 people are in his sights, because that's what Lou discovered in his lab. A news report flashes across the screen. A massive public convention happening in the city. Rick, his uncle, and Trey all look at each other. That's where Lou is going to strike. They head to the convention. And in a humiliating twist, Lou is right there. Acting casual, friendly, completely normal. Rick has no idea Lou knows his secret. So he actually walks up to Lou and asks him if he's seen any suspicious villains around. Lou, barely hiding a smirk, points to a monk standing on the stage. That's the villain, he says. Rick believes him. He pulls on his costume and storms the stage, tackling the completely innocent monk in front of hundreds of confused attendees. While everyone is focused on the chaos, Lou slips away. When he returns, he's in full villain mode, and he brings the roof down. Literally. He uses his powers to collapse the ceiling directly onto Rick, burying him. Then he starts hurling blades. But before they can reach Rick, Jill steps in front of them. She takes the hit. He carries her to the rooftop, where Lou has already activated his machine and begun draining the crowd below. Rick, thinking fast, uses the machine in reverse, channeling its energy to bring Jill back. It works. She's alive. But the clock is ticking. Rick charges. Blades hit him. He keeps moving. Lou unleashes everything. Rick pushes through it. He reaches the machine, and he destroys it. The explosion swallows Lou whole, and Rick and Jill are thrown off the rooftop together. They fall side by side, tumbling through the air. And in that fall, Jill looks at Rick's hand. She sees the ring. The same ring she's seen on Rick's finger 100 times. They were the same person all along. And that is the full story of the Dragonfly. The movie reminds us that being extraordinary doesn't protect you from pain. It just gives you a reason to keep going despite it. Now listen, if you made it all the way to the end of this video, you already know you're the kind of person who appreciates a good story. So here's my question for you. Drop a comment below. Would you want a sequel to this movie? And what do you think? Did Rick deserve Jill all along? Or was Lawrence honestly not that bad? Let me know below. And if you watched this entire video without being subscribed to this channel, come on now. You just spent all this time here. You clearly like what we do. Hit that subscribe button. Costs you absolutely nothing, and it genuinely means everything to us. We work hard to bring you these stories, and every single subscriber tells us to keep going. Don't let us find out you watched the whole thing and didn't subscribe. That would hurt more than a dragonfly bite. We'll see you in the next one.